Hello, and welcome to another episode of Thursdays with Tracy, where I talk about all things progressive. I have a special guest with me today who is running for Congress here in Indiana, and I'll bring him on here in just a moment. But remember, this show comes on each Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you consider yourself progressive and you want to have me interview you for this show, please give us a contact at the email Tracy, TracyMediallC at gmail.com, and I will definitely be getting back with you. So, with that being said, I'm going to bring on our guest, Liam Doris, who is running for office in a congressional seat here in Indiana. And let's bring him on here.
Well, hello, Tracy.
Hello, sir. How are you today?
Oh, I'm not doing too bad. It's been a day, you know. So, no, my name is Liam Doris, and I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives down here in the ninth. And I'm a lefty. A lot of things that I do aren't necessarily 100% in line with the Democratic Party platform. I'm to the left. I'm more of a Bernie Sanders kind of figure, and there's a lot of policies and positions that I take on that a lot of establishment Democrats don't take on. So that's the rundown of who I am. In my personal life, I have a day job. I'm part of the working class. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and and in my personal life, I'm a geek. So, I have a lot of fun and try to get out there and do a lot of things.
Well, that was more of an overview than I was expecting. Thank you. So I want to get into, and if I get your opponent's name wrong, just let it go, because I think you're running for the primary at this point, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then of course when you win, you'll be running against Trey Hollingsworth.
Correct.
Oh, I got that right. I thought I'm going to get this wrong. Because I'm in the 7th district, Indianapolis and all that area, and you're down south, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Oh, not with the ma'am. No, not with the ma'am. No.
Force of habit.
Okay. What? And who are the kind of like the Democrats in that you're running against in the primaries?
Okay, so there's total 5 of us. There's myself, of course. There's a gentleman named Matt Fife, who is a teacher and a union member. He's a leader of his union. He's running on a campaign of hope. There's Chad Harmon. I believe he works for Raytheon up in your neck of the woods. There's Babak, and I don't want to try saying his name because I always mess it up. But he's got amazing policy positions. I love Babak. And there is Jonathan Cole, who I don't know too much about at this point in time, other than that he's running. So it's another wide field. I feel like the candidates are a lot more robust than they were this past election. So it should be an interesting time. We've all sat down and had a conversation, and we agree. We're gonna push what we push, and it's going to be selling our ideas, competing. Some of them, these ideas are going to be competing ideas, and we won't hesitate to be feisty whenever need be, or try to make the argument for what are the policies that we push forward. But at the end of the day, whoever wins that competition, is going to go on to face Trey Hollingsworth, and we need to put our full backing behind each other. So we have at this point in time, what I can say is we have an excellent crew down here, trying to push good ideas, and we'll see what lands with Hoosiers in Southern Indiana the best.
Absolutely, and there's a reason that I asked that particular question. So to be 100% honest, I am really, 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 really ticked off about the Nina Turner race. I felt like this is a great candidate. She's progressive, We've got this, and somehow I don't. Here comes dark money. Here comes the Democratic Party. How do you, and hopefully your race won't get nearly as much attention, but how do you not only fight the Republicans, who you already know that you have to fight, but in some instances that you now have to fight those who are supposedly in your own party. If you are. Now, it doesn't sound like you are at this point, and I hope it doesn't get to that point, but how do you square, I guess I'm asking, how do you square away the differences that you have between yourself and the other candidates?
Well, right now the big difference that I've been hammering, and most people realize this that have met me or come across me, and that is that I'm a candidate for policy. I'm not out there trying to make myself rich, or I'm not trying to go out there and promote myself for like a podcast at some other point in time. I actually have policies that I want to take to Washington and actually fight for. It's a list as long as your arm, and that's where I've been making the distinction. And another example is, as a contrast, Matt Fife is running a campaign of hope. He's very much pushing education, which is wonderful. I like it. So like that's where we try to distinguish it. There's going to be things that are going to be more center leaning. There's going to be things that are more left leaning. Now, whenever it comes down to it, I'm a little different in the way that I strategize. I don't really see it as a game of red versus blue. What I see it is working class people versus the corporate establishment. In my view, that corporations, whenever they make donations to both parties. And they don't make just small donations. They make huge donations to these candidates across the board. And whenever they do that, the more money that you donate to a candidate, the more that you have their ear. Because right now, the way it works is money is considered free speech, even though I disagree with that. Artificial entities such as corporations are people, so they can donate unlimited amounts of money to these candidates. And so these corporations, they'll whisper into Democrats' ears, they'll whisper into Republican ears, and they call the plays. And it's even more nefarious than that. Whenever most politicians they receive these bills that they want to push forward, they're not the ones actually authoring these bills. A lot of these are authored by the lobbyists and the corporations themselves and handed and put onto the desk of these politicians. And these politicians, they'll go out and promote this. They'll have their bullet point, the cover sheets, and they'll go out and promote this, and then they'll pass it. And then they pass it the way that they're instructed on passing it. And that's not something I necessarily agree with. So whenever I say that it's the working class versus the politicians and the corporations, that is very much a resonating thing. On our side of politics, we think of corruption and so on and so forth, and we talk about things in terms of, we have the propaganda messages, we have this and that and the other thing. And on the right, they see a lot of the same things. It's a lot in different terms. For example, what we might consider, propaganda, they see as fake news, and so on and so forth. Like there's a whole lot of different language there for saying the same thing. The vast majority of the conservative voters who voted for Trump, for example, that I talked to, they voted for Trump simply for one thing, and that is Trump's promise to, quote, drain the swamp, which he ultimately became part of the swamp rather than, draining the swamp. But it's a message that's clear, and it's something both people on the left and the right can agree on. And there's tons of policies on the left and the right that people can agree on. So it's a matter of trying to rally the working class rather than trying to rally people who are straight ticket voters. I love my Democrats. I love my leftists. I am a leftist, so I go out there and I work with them every day. They are just the people who I caucus with. I get asked all the time, though, if I'm a Republican. I'm absolutely not a Republican. I'm a lefty. But that doesn't mean that I disagree with the Democratic Party platforms any less than, say, a Republican in a lot of times. So that's why it's important to tread our own path, speak up for Hoosiers across the spectrum, and not just the blues and the reds or whomever. We as working class, we have a lot of common issues. I would say 80% of the issues that need to happen or we're facing right now, we face together. Homelessness is a big thing. As you know, this weekend the eviction moratorium had expired, and Cori Bush was out doing an Occupy Congress type of event and pushing that. Now, she did get some margin of success. Biden is case-to-case basis extended that moratorium a little bit, but there's still tons of people that are going to be in trouble, and they're going to be homeless. And people who are facing eviction aren't just the leftists, aren't just the liberals. They're the conservatives and the people on the right too. They're going to be experiencing the same things. We have pay equity right now. The corporations are raking in billions and billions of dollars. We only get about 10% of what we are actually worth. There's issues with minimum wage. How do we adjust that? And right now we have the Delta variant coming out. Like, everybody's going to be affected by that, whether they're on the left or the right. And how are we going to address this? How are we going to talk about this? And a lot of people, they depend on their CNNs and their Fox News and their MSNBCs and so on and so forth. But you have to understand, all these major media corporations are owned by the same owners. And so it's very important to go out there and say, look, hey, we need to actually square away this information, and we need to give it to people genuinely and fairly, and not try to make it a political issue, because it's not just our lives that are in danger. It's our own families' lives that are in danger. It's our parents and our grandparents, and in some cases, it's our children. So, again, it's not just an issue that's on the left or the right, because COVID-19 doesn't care about your politics. It's gonna hit you where you need, or where it needs to hit you. And whenever you go out and you're not being safe about things, if you carry a viral load, you could potentially pass it to somebody who is immunocompromised. So what we need to do is just be out there being firm and being fair and being smart about it, being like, hey, look, I know that you don't like this or you disagree with this, but here's the thing, is like, we have to be safe together, because I know your family is as important as my family. So let's talk about this and work this out and try to work through it. Now, some conversations are more difficult than others, and that's okay. People are free to disagree. I mean, that's part of what makes a robust democracy, is people who disagree with each other and talk through it. And that's a bridge I would like rebuild, because that's a bridge that's not currently there. People who are on the left and the people who are on the right can't talk back and forth with each other. You start to engage with a conversation with somebody who's, as me on the lefty. A lot of times I try to engage on a conversation with somebody on the right, and they almost don't want to talk to me, because they're worried that it's going to turn into an argument where I throw insults at them and I berate them, and that's totally not what I want to do. What I'm trying to do is reform this to being like, hey, let's actually have this conversation. We can bust out our phones. We can start to do the fact checking in real time. Give me the side of give me your thoughts, and I'll give you my thoughts. And whenever you start to actually have that conversation, rather than being personally insultive and disrespectful to one another, people, they engage and they light up, and you start to learn really quick what their passions are and what the kind of things they care for, and you start to realize that we're less divided than what we seem, and more on the same page than what you could ever realize. So it's important to get out there and talk to people. A lot of people, they feel like they're hamstrung because they worry that if they open their mouth, they might say the wrong thing. And that's not just people on the right; that's people on the left too. So right now, it's a total like. Put your head in the sand. Don't talk to each other, because you don't want to ruin those friendships. That you don't want to ruin family meals. You don't want to do that. Right now, if you're a young woman here in Southern Indiana, and you go to Thanksgiving dinner with your family and you bring up politics, it's going to ruin the dinner, because people don't know how to rationally and be respectful with one another and actually have those robust conversations that absolutely need to happen. And so whenever you go out there and encourage, hey, these are conversations that we're going to have. Let's have them. Let's have them in a respectful manner. Let's talk about them, because there's a lot of issues that face us. And here's the thing: is we can't always listen to what is being put out. We can't listen to the Tucker Carlsons on the right. We can't listen to the wolves at CNN. You have to you have to sit there and actually have those conversations. You have to look up the real data. You can't say this person's corrupt and this person's corrupt without bringing up, say, FEC reports, or in some cases, people bring up the other websites that parse those, so you can see who's taking what money from who. And a lot of this stuff is twisted, and there's not a genuine conversation there. And people who in the working class can have that genuine conversation. People aren't as aren't as slow as what a lot of people think. They pay attention. They know what's going on. They see what's going on. They have the same capability of reading the different news, going to the different independent media outlets, and seeing where we link up. And to me, that's super important. Even with me as a leftist, like, I would rather go out there and have those conversations, engage with everyday regular people, than to push them away. And I'm not just saying that to get votes, because the votes that I'm going out there and getting are going to be votes that I earn. They're not going to be votes that are necessarily just given to me because I have a D behind my name. I want people to say, hey, you know what? This is an honest, genuine guy trying to represent our district. We may disagree with him on certain points, but you know what? This guy is amazing. And you might have those people out there who are, say, conservative Republican voters, who are like, it would break my heart to ever vote Democrat, but you know what? I want to tell my kids at Thanksgiving, hey, there's this amazing Democrat that you guys have that you absolutely should vote for. Please vote for him, because he's going to do much better than anybody else. He's the most honest. He's the most genuine. He doesn't sit there and insult us or disrespect us every day. Those are the kind of things that I want to do. I want to earn that. I want to sell the policies more than I sell myself. I mean, there's not a whole lot to sell of myself, in my opinion. Like I said, I'm a geek. I'm a veteran, but these are things that I share in common with the working class people here. I don't have super stories that nobody else has. Everybody's got great stories, at least a couple. And I have a couple, and so what I try to do is, hey, these are the policies. This is how I'm going to represent you. I'm going to represent you in a mindful, thoughtful, understanding manner. And it's not going to be just the lefties that I represent. It's going to be the people on the right as well. And I want to make sure that they have a fair shake, and I want to make sure that everybody has a fair shake. Do I have my own platforms and ideas and my biases? Sure. But you're going to know that I'm always going to speak true to the facts. I'm going to be a man of my word, and I'm going to go out there and be the best representative that I possibly can. And that's what I want to encourage. And that's how I'm going to approach this election a little bit differently than a lot of other candidates throughout a lot of different states. And like you talked about earlier, Nina Turner. Nina Turner is wonderful. I'm an avid supporter of Nina Turner. I get told all the time that I should that me and Tina should team up and run for president at some point in time. I'm like, nah, I don't know if I'm ready for that. But I love Nina Turner, and I have for many, many years as a big Bernie supporter. And Nina is, whenever I talk about things, I think of myself as I represent the heart of what the working class is. These are the issues. These are what I want to talk about, and so on and so forth. If I'm the heart, Nina Turner is the soul of this nation, and soul of the working class. And I love the idea of the heart and soul getting together and on the same page. And it was devastating whenever I found out that she lost the other day. And there's just nothing really I could say. I tried to do the autopsy. There's things that I super loved about the campaign. There were certain things I didn't like. I think that she should have stuck to her guns a little bit more on policy. I think that she should have turned out for the March for Medicare for All. I think that she didn't need to pivot center, because people are starting to not like the center as much as they want to see, people actually stick to their guns. Like Republicans, we don't agree with Republicans, but they stick to their guns on their issues, right? Mm-hmm. But Democrats, they're all over the board, and nobody really knows where they stand. And all it takes for Democrats to start winning big is sticking to the issues and saying, I'm not gonna bail out on Medicare for all. I'm not going to bail out on the legalization of marijuana. I'm not going to bail out on the minimum wage. I'm going to fight no matter what. And that's what we need. It's encouraging for that. And so whenever you go out there, you say, "This is who I am. This is what it is," and it doesn't change. And if it ever does change, you have to say, "Hey, I've upgraded my message on." I can't even think of a message that I would even start to veer off of. But if you say, "Hey, look, this was," let me give you a good. Here's one: Affordable Care Act. A lot of people support the Affordable Care Act, and they also support Medicare for all. And here's the thing: is the Affordable Care Act. I think it did a lot of. It was very much a step in the right direction. I think it was a conversation that we needed to have. But overall, I'm not very impressed by the Affordable Care Act, because what it does is it takes our taxes and it makes it a money funnel into the insurance industry's mouths. It's just making the rich richer, and I don't think that we should be doing that. I think that we should cut out the insurance industry altogether, and buy it through a Medicare for all system. It doesn't change healthcare. You don't have to change doctors. Yes, there will be a slight tax increase for everyday working Americans, but that tax increase will be less than what we pay on our premiums, and we will not have any copays or deductibles on anything. We'll have dental, vision. The only thing that you might have to pay a few bucks extra for are the state-of-the-art medications that are just coming out of the beta testing, and that just hit the market. You're going to have to pay a few bucks for that extra premium new medication, because those copyrights need to be paid for, and so on and so forth. But whenever I talk about it, I'm talking about 10, 20 bucks on top of whatever is normally paid. And getting that drug listed on the list of things that we completely cover will be the next priority. Medicare for all makes sense, because here's the thing: is healthcare is a human right, and nobody should be going out there without insulin, without care, so on and so forth. We have a lot of people out in this nation that are retired, disabled, and outside of the workforce. They're working class outside of the workforce because they can't work anymore, because their jobs have broken their bodies. And so those people right now, they're living literally from paycheck to paycheck. I was listening to a gentleman just the other day. He lives on $863 a month on Social Security disability, because he is disabled and outside of the workforce, and he can barely survive, and he still has to pay taxes on that Social Security, and he can't afford to go to the doctor, because the premiums themselves are as much as he makes in a lot of cases. And even if he could get that pushed out, and get onto a plan that's free or basic free, the copays and deductibles are so high for a lot of the extra stuff. Like, thankfully he's got Medicaid and stuff like that, but the special stuff, the elective stuff, it's so hard for him that he doesn't do it. What he has to do is he has to take a part-time job, which, by the way, if you make even as much as $20 over the amount that they say that you can make if you're on SSI, you lose your SSI, period, just like that. And it takes years to get on it. So there's a whole, we just need to get rid of this medical system, or this medical insurance system that we're on right now. And just switch over to a Medicare for all system, so people can go and get their preventive checkups, so they can go and get checked out, their physicals, and so on and so forth. If it needs to be reactionary medicine, they can get the reactionary medicine, and so on and so forth. But right now, it's what's going on in America is affecting our livelihoods. Of the 35 industrialized top 35 industrialized nations of the world, we are the only one without some form of universal health care, and that's a tragedy. People want to say, "Hey, let's make America great again." Well, I'm confused by that, because I'm like, if you really want to make America great, let's get universal health care, because we're at the bottom of the rungs right now. America only really leads the world in a few different categories: military spending, persons incarcerated per capita, people who believe in angels per capita. Why can't we say, "Hey, we've got the strongest healthcare system in the world"? Why can't we say, "Hey, we have the strongest humanitarian efforts in the world"? Why can't we say that we have this and that? And so if we want to make America great, if we want to put it to where it needs to be, we actually need to say, we're great for this reason and this reason and this reason. And those reasons need to be humanitarian, not necessarily war related. War is something I'm totally against, and the only reason I think that we should have a military around is to be a response to humanitarian crisis and crisis such as genocide. I don't think that we need to be spending $768 billion per year on our military. I'm a veteran, and I'll tell you, we don't need that. Um, it's so wasteful in the military, and we could be spending that money on universal health care. We could be spending it on education programs. We could be spending on a whole lot of different other things. So you go out there and you talk to voters, and you say, hey, these are the issues. These are these are what people want to know about. They want to hear about. They're robust, and you're not just messing with them. You're not just trying to patronize them. You're out there with a genuine message that says, hey, I care about things. You may not understand why I care about things, on such a grand scale. And maybe you're a little bit more center focused, and that's okay too, but you have to understand that there are people out there who want to help the community, and not just help themselves, but help you and your family, your kids, your parents, your grandparents, whatever the case may be. And that's a different conversation than anybody's really having right now. I say, to the hell with unity. I want solidarity with the working class. And that's the message that I'm trying to get out there to go against Trey Hollingsworth, who represents corporations. You look at his FEC reports. He doesn't get very many small money donors. He gets banks. He gets financial institutions. He gets health insurance industry kind of stuff. That's all the donors that he really gets. And so he doesn't really represent the average working class member of the working class. Trey Hollingsworth, about a year ago, he was like, whenever he's talking about reopening, he was like, at some point in time, we have to decide whether or not we're going to reopen the economy and send people back to work, or reduce profits. He's like, we have to put our big boy pants on. And what he was saying is that he wants to put profits in front of people. Well, I'm the spectral opposite. I want to put people over profits and show my solidarity to the working class. I don't want to just rise on my own. I don't want to be necessarily the superstar. I want to rise with the working class and let this nation become, back to being a nation for the working class, and not just a nation for the very wealthy, the corporations, and those types of people who are, in my opinion, sociopathic, who don't care about people at all. All they care about is the bottom line, what makes them money. And that is not an attitude that we should be bringing to Congress. And we need to have somebody who's got more of a humanitarian voice going to Congress and saying, hey, we need to do this thing. We need to do anti-corruption. We need to talk about ethics whenever it comes to the federal government. We need to talk about, universal health care, Medicare for all being the top one, and so on and so forth. Talk about the issues that actually affect the people who vote for these politicians, not just, corporate bailout. Take, for example, the American Rescue Plan. Like it was, I want to say, $860 billion that went to people. We all got $1,400 of the $2,000 that was promised to us in a one-time payment. In my opinion, for the duration of the pandemic, everybody should have received $2,000 reoccurring checks during the pandemic. That would help them pay the rent. That would help them put food on the table, clothe their children, get the children out to school or online school. And whenever they spend money, they're spending it. They're giving it to businesses, and they're giving it to our local businesses because let's say they go buy whatever. They're consuming whatever. They're giving it to local businesses. They're giving it to the landlords. They're giving it to this people, right? And those businesses take that money that people are spending, and they actually spend it on the bigger businesses because they have to have their stuff. Sure, they make a profit off of it, but they're still out there and going, and they buy from bigger businesses, and those businesses buy from bigger businesses, and everybody's affected. And it's truly an economic stimulus. And what we did is, instead of, of that $4 trillion, that under $1 trillion that the people got, a lot of it was a lot of corporate bailouts and reaffirmation of the PPP programs and so on and so forth. which is just funneling money right into billionaires' pockets. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And the economy is, as we see it, you go to the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, whatever, you see it going up and up and up. But it doesn't take much of an observation to go out onto the street, talk to people, and realize that the people's economy isn't working for us. Like prices are going up, our wages are going down if we have jobs at all, and we're struggling to live and work. So, we have to address those kitchen table issues. So
Exactly. You expounded on a whole lot of things there. But I wanted to make sure I got some basic information. So the primary it's obviously May of 2022, correct?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then when you win, then that election is going to be November 2022. So the reason I'm asking for these clarifications is this: is Indiana is the reddest of red states. We both know what it's like to live in a state with a Republican governor who is afraid of his legislatures. He could easily declare a mask mandate, but won't. And we have cases of COVID going up due to the variant. He cut off the extended relief because he felt like, oh, well, people are just using the $300 not to go to work, minusing the fact that jobs don't pay very much. But thankfully, the people sued. How do you take those local issues that affect the people in your district and then make them palatable to what's going on nationally?
Okay. First of all, there's a lot of fighting going on, and again, I go out and talk to people every day. I had a constituent here who's a two-time Trump voter. She's considers herself Republican, and I was talking to her about it, and she was like, "Look, I used to be a Democrat, but to quote Ronald Reagan, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left me." So there's a lot of people who are on the right hand side of things, who are part of that R plus 15 number. You go out and you start talking about things, and you start saying, look, it's not just about being a Republican or Democrat. It's about being a human being. Think about it. You can't just think about yourself. You need to be thinking about other people, and other people need to be thinking about you. And whenever Governor Holcomb, I don't agree with at all. I think that he is, for lack of better terms, a little smarmy. Doesn't really get into things, passes the buck. He doesn't take charge and do what needs to be done nearly as often as what he needs to do. And I have examples of that I won't mention. But he doesn't want to take the bull by the horns and make those difficult decisions. He wants to make sure that he is seen as amiable, or as affable, and so he won't make those difficult calls that he really should do, because being in an R plus 15 district now, a lot of those people who are going to be the conservative voters, who are going to be the people who vote for Governor Holcomb and the Republicans, a lot of those people are senior citizens. And here's the thing: is they really need to be thinking about whether or not they don't want to push that mask mandate, because who is the greatest risk, and it is our senior citizens. They are literally going to let their voters die because they're trying to be affable to the state, and that's not something I really like. I'm a humanitarian. I'm a humanist. I don't want anybody to die from COVID if that we don't have to let die from COVID. There are people who are going to be sick and they're going to die no matter what. And then there's going to be people who die of other natural causes. And that's while that's always sad, that's always going to happen. But what we don't need to do is through inaction allow more people to die, whereas they don't have to. A lot of these people, they don't have to die. All we have to do is wear our masks, protect each other in public, and so on and so forth. But again, just because they don't want to stir the water, they're going to let their own voters die. To me, it seems gross. And like I said, I try to draw a line between working class and politicians, and that's just a political thing that's a call that he needs to make, because that's the right call. It's not necessarily the Republican call, because we're going to have issues that we're going to vote on one way or the other. But there are things that are just bad calls and the good calls. And sometimes the good calls, they aren't necessarily going to, they're not going to jive with your platform. But you need to make that, because you are a leader. You're making those decisions. What you say is what is going to happen. And he's afraid of his own shadow. He won't make those calls, and it's putting lives in danger. Not just lives of people, folks that are on my side of the spectrum, but folks on his side of the spectrum as well. And they're going to pay a price for this, and it's not going to it's going to be a heavy price, and I don't want to see that happen, because it hurts me personally. But whenever you're in that situation, how is history going to remember you? Are you going to be just that partisan hack that doesn't do anything because you got to be a partisan hack? Or are you going to be the person who made the tough calls in the tough situations? That's what you need to do. And great leaders, they set aside partisan politics and their opinions whenever the right call needs to be made. And right now, in Indiana leadership anyway, you're not seeing a whole lot of that.
No. Last question is, tell us how people can support your campaign.
Well, first you could visit my website, dliamnorris.com, to take a look at that. Right now, we're still fleshing out some of the internal structure. I'm not taking volunteers right now, outside of like very specific niche roles, such as fundraising and so on and so forth. Volunteers are going to be. I'm going to be opening it to volunteers later on down the road, whenever I get the campaign a little bit more locked on as far as the different positions and so on and so forth. But the biggest way that you can help out is donate to my Act Blue. Act Blue money comes right here. I put it into the bank, and I spend it on things like staff. I spend it on things like materials to go out and so on and so forth to spread the message. You can start having conversations with your families and friends about my campaign and tell them, look, this is a different kind of Democrat. He actually has policies in mind. He's thinking about working class. He talks about kitchen table issues. Having those conversations are so much more beneficial to my campaign than me sending out postcards that everybody's going to throw in the trash. Will I still do that? Yeah, I'm going to have to do that. But whenever you're having those honest conversations with other people, those are so much more important than the cards. And a lot of people are hurting right now. And I try not to ask for too much money. I go out there and make phone calls and ask for money, and I take money from those people who can afford it right now. But a lot of people, they're out of a job. They don't have money. They're struggling to put food on their table, and I don't want to take food out of their kids' mouths. So we're trying to spread the word. We're trying to get some promotion going on, and just saying, hey, look, let's have an honest conversation here, and if you really want to help, start sharing my social media all over Facebook, specifically Facebook, because that reaches more Hoosiers than any other social media platform. Twitter's great, and all the other social medias are great. Be sure you tag me in it, and if you have questions, ask them. PM me, throw them up on my Facebook posts. I'm very active on all most of the social media. You got questions, ask. I'll talk to you about my thoughts. We may agree, we may disagree, but at the end of the day, you will actually feel like you've actually had that conversation, rather than being ignored by the politician that is just talking at you rather than talking with you. Like, have that conversation with me. I invite it.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you took out time to do this evening. I thank you so much for your participation in this event, and look for the big invitation to the September meeting I'm having. You'll know more about it. But I want to thank you for your time. Have a fantastic evening, and thank you so much for being with us here. And I'm going to continue because I got a special message to my audience today.
Thank you very much, Tracy, for having me on.
You're welcome. Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye-bye. Okay, audience, I am here to talk to you about a very special announcement that I have, and to the two people that are watching, thank you. As you know, at the top of the show, I talked about how upset I was about the whole Nina Turner losing thing. So I decided to actually bring back a group that I had started a couple of months ago, but then I let it go. And it's basically called We're Tired of This Mess. We are tired of dark money. We're tired of the Democrats' game attacking progressives. We're tired of it. So I'll put a link in the description, and we probably won't have a person interviewing. I had a couple of emails out, but I haven't heard of anything. So if you are a progressive, even if you are not running for office, and you would like to be interviewed to just talk about your progressive views, let me know, because that would be just great. I love to talk to both voters and politicians. It's something that I enjoy doing. So I'm going to end this podcast. And again, I'm going to put the We Are Tired of This Mess link down there. That's not the name of the PAC. And I forgot to talk about what the PAC does. So what the PAC is going to do is two things. One is recruit progressives to run for office, train progressives to run for office, contribute money to run for office. Those are the three core values of the group. So the link will be on in the description after I get off of here tonight. But I'm going to be talking about that. And I'm hoping, I see Radical Truth to Power here. I'm sort of hoping he can be with me next Thursday. If he can't, that's okay. But like I said, I don't have any interviews scheduled for next week. But I definitely want to talk to progressive voters, progressive politicians. The Democratic controlled House is just there. It's just a no. So just remember, I'll put it in the link in about 20 minutes. And I will see you all next week. Thank you for joining me, and be back for Thursdays with Tracy. Have a fantastic evening. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you all. And please remember to share this on your social media if you can. I would greatly appreciate it. Have a fantastic evening.